A Soviet childhood, the early years of Andrei Chikatilo. Andrei Chikatilo was born in 1936 in a small village in Ukraine. Life was hard in the Soviet Union. Times were even harder because of Stalin's policies. Chikatilo's family were peasants. They faced constant struggles. Hunger was a daily reality. There were stories of cannibalism during the Ukrainian famine. This left a mark on Chikatilo's young mind. He witnessed brutality. He experienced deprivation. These things shaped his worldview. It is important to look at these early years. They provide context for his future crimes. Shadows of war, famine, and its scars. The Soviet Union suffered greatly during World War II. Ukraine, Chikatilo's homeland, was particularly devastated. The war's impact on Chikatilo was profound. He witnessed violence. He felt fear and insecurity. The famine of 1946-47 was especially horrific. Millions died of starvation. Chikatilo, still a child, saw people suffering around him. He may have even witnessed acts of cannibalism. These experiences left deep psychological scars. They likely contributed to his later descent into violence. Troubled youth, a difficult path to adulthood. As Chikatilo grew older, he remained introverted. He struggled socially. He was bullied for his physical appearance and timid nature. This fueled feelings of inadequacy and resentment. He found solace in books. He developed an interest in literature. However, his academic performance was inconsistent. He failed his university entrance exams the first time. This failure deepened his sense of inferiority. It also reinforced his feelings of being an outcast. He eventually enrolled in a technical school. He seemed destined for an ordinary life, but darkness lurked beneath the surface. A family man, marriage, work, and growing frustration. These three elements intertwined in the life of Andrei Chikatilo, creating a complex web of personal and professional challenges. Chikatilo eventually married and had 2 children. On the surface, he seemed to be living the life of a typical Soviet family man, fulfilling societal expectations. He appeared to be a typical Soviet citizen, blending into the fabric of everyday life in the Soviet Union. He held jobs that were considered respectable and stable. He worked as a teacher and later as a supply clerk. These roles, while seemingly ordinary, were significant in the Soviet context, where employment was a key aspect of one's identity and social standing, but his personal life was far from idyllic. Beneath the surface, Chikatilo struggled with impotence, a condition that caused him immense personal turmoil. This condition caused him deep shame and frustration. In a society that valued traditional masculinity, his impotence made him feel deeply inadequate. He felt inadequate as a man, unable to fulfill the roles expected of him by his family and society. This sense of inadequacy gnawed at his self-esteem. His work life was also marked by failure. Despite his efforts, he struggled to maintain a stable career. He was dismissed from his teaching job for inappropriate behavior with students. This dismissal was a significant blow to his professional and personal life. His inability to hold down a job added to his feelings of inadequacy. Each rejection and failure compounded his sense of worthlessness. His anger and resentment grew. The frustration of his personal and professional failures began to consume him. He began to direct his frustration towards others. His interactions became increasingly hostile and aggressive. This marked a turning point towards his dark path. The combination of personal inadequacies and professional failures set the stage for the darker aspects of his personality to emerge. Section 5. The Monster Awakens. Chikatilo's first kill. In 1978, Chikatilo committed his first known murder. His victim was a 9-year-old girl named Yelena Zakotnova. He lured her to a secluded shack. He attempted to rape her. When she resisted, he became enraged. He brutally murdered her. This first murder was a horrific turning point. It unleashed the monster within him. He had crossed a line. He felt a perverse sense of power and control. He had tasted blood. This would not be his last victim. Section 6. A Trail of Blood. Years of terror and a growing victim count. The Soviet Union, a land shrouded in secrecy and fear, became the hunting ground for one of the most notorious serial killers in history. Over the next 12 years, Chikatilo continued to kill. His reign of terror seemed unstoppable, with each passing year adding more victims to his gruesome tally. He preyed on vulnerable young people, both boys and girls who were often runaways or from disadvantaged backgrounds. These children, already living on the fringes of society, became easy targets for his malevolent intentions. Many of his victims were homeless, wandering the streets in search of shelter and safety. Others came from poor neighborhoods where hope was a scarce commodity. He would lure them with promises of food, alcohol, or help, exploiting their desperation and trust. His methods were as cunning as they were cruel. Taking them to secluded areas far from the prying eyes of the public, he ensured that no one could hear their cries for help. In these isolated locations, he would torture, kill, and mutilate their bodies, leaving behind a trail of horror and despair. His crimes terrorized the Rostov region, casting a dark shadow over the community. The fear was palpable, with every parent fearing for the safety of their children. Spreading fear and panic among the population, his actions created an atmosphere of dread. People looked over their shoulders, afraid that they or their loved ones might be next. The authorities were under immense pressure to catch the killer. However, the task was daunting, and the stakes were incredibly high. The investigation was hampered by a lack of resources. The police force, already stretched thin, struggled with outdated equipment and insufficient manpower. Additionally, there was a reluctance to acknowledge the extent of the crimes. The Soviet government, keen on maintaining an image of control and order, was hesitant to admit that such a monster could exist within its borders. Despite these challenges, the community's outcry grew louder, demanding justice for the innocent lives lost. The hunt for Chikatilo became a race against time, with every moment of delay potentially costing another life. Section 7. The Hunters and the Hunted. The investigation intensifies. The Soviet authorities faced a daunting task. They were dealing with a serial killer, a phenomenon they were ill-equipped to understand. Traditional investigative methods were proving ineffective. The case became a national obsession. The pressure to catch the killer mounted. The authorities employed a variety of methods. They interviewed thousands of people. They conducted mass blood tests. They even consulted with psychics in their desperation. However, Chikatilo remained elusive. He continued to kill. The body count continued to rise. Section 8, a breakthrough, the profile, and the stakeouts. In a groundbreaking move, Soviet authorities sought the help of psychiatrist Alexander Bukhanovsky. Bukhanovsky was a pioneer in criminal profiling in the Soviet Union. He studied the case files, analyzed the crime scenes, and developed a psychological profile of the killer. Bukhanovsky's profile was remarkably accurate. It provided valuable insights into the killer's psyche and modus operandi. Based on the profile, the authorities implemented a massive surveillance operation. They staked out train stations and other public places where the killer was likely to appear. Section 9. Capture and Confession. Unmasking the Butcher of Rostov. In November 1990, Chikatilo was finally apprehended. He was stopped by police for acting suspiciously near a train station. A search of his belongings revealed a knife, rope, and other incriminating items. Confronted with the evidence, Chikatilo confessed to his crimes. His confession was chilling in its detail. He described his crimes with a disturbing detachment, expressing little remorse for his victims. The news of his capture sent shockwaves through the Soviet Union. The monster had a name: Andrei Chikatilo. Section 10. The Trial and Sentencing. Justice for the Victims. This chapter delves into the final chapter of Andrei Chikatilo's life, where justice was finally served for the countless lives he destroyed. Chikatilo's trial began in 1992, marking the beginning of the end for one of the most notorious serial killers in history. The courtroom was packed with people eager to witness the proceedings. It was a media sensation, with journalists from around the globe descending upon the courthouse. The trial was covered extensively, with every detail scrutinized and broadcasted. People around the world were captivated by the horrific nature of his crimes. The gruesome details of his actions shocked and horrified the public, making headlines in newspapers and dominating television news. Chikatilo's behavior in court was erratic, adding to the drama of the trial. He often disrupted the proceedings with his unpredictable actions. He alternated between outbursts of anger and moments of seeming detachment. His unpredictable demeanor kept everyone on edge, wondering what he might do next. Ultimately, the court found him guilty of 52 counts of murder and sentenced him to death. The verdict was met with a mix of relief and sorrow from the families of the victims. In 1994, he was executed by a single gunshot to the back of the head. This method of execution was swift, bringing an end to his reign of terror. His death brought a sense of closure to the families of his victims. For many, it was a moment of justice, a final chapter in a long and painful journey. However, the scars of his crimes would last forever. The communities affected by his actions continue to mourn and remember the lives lost. Memorials stand as a testament to the enduring impact of his heinous acts, reminding us of the importance of justice and the resilience of the human spirit. Section 11. Legacy of Evil, Lessons for the Future. Andrei Chikatilo's case remains one of the most notorious in criminal history. It highlighted the dark side of human nature. It also exposed the shortcomings of the Soviet criminal justice system. The case led to advancements in forensic science and criminal profiling in Russia. More importantly, it emphasized the need for greater awareness of serial killers and their methods. Chikatilo's reign of terror may be over, but his case serves as a chilling reminder of the importance of vigilance, understanding, and the pursuit of justice for all victims of such horrific crimes.